In this episode, we're going to show you how I load my shotgun shells. It's not very hard, and I hope I can encourage others to give it a try too. The recipe that I'm going to be using will be driving this LBC Sabot slug at 2,000 feet per second. And then later on this week, I'm going to try to talk Reagan to shooting these. Now, it really doesn't take a lot of real expensive or fancy equipment to start reloading. You'll need a powder scale, and these need to be accurate. You need to trust what these things are telling you, whether it's a mechanical one or an electronic one. You'll need a roll crimping tool, and I use this along with my Harbor Freight drill press. This is what you use to seal the shell after you've loaded it. Next, you need to select a powder. I prefer the Hodgson's long shot just because a lot of other guys use it, and there's a lot of recipes using this powder. You'll need some way to transfer the powder. I just made this out of a transfer pipette. You can also use a spoon or whatever you've got. You'll need to figure out what kind of slug you want to shoot. These are all available on ballistic products. Today we're going to focus on this one slug called the LBC Sabot. These one-piece slugs make reloading really fast and easy. Now you'll need some holes. Here we have some holes that are already primed. I got these from ballistic products because I can't find any store that sells any kind of holes locally. So I ordered these 3-inch primed holes from ballistic products too. Now you'll need some kind of data to figure out what kind of powder, how much powder to use with what type of slug and what kind of hole. And Ballistic Products has this nice loading manual. One good source I've found is on Facebook, a group called Buck and Slug Reloaders. And there's a mix of new loaders and very experienced loaders who can help you out when you need some advice. So check them out, please. But let's use the Ballistic Products loading data here. They have loading data for all the slugs that they sell. We'll be using a 12 gauge, 3-inch linked hole with the LBC Sabot, using a roll crimp to close it off. But as you can see, there's quite a few options for using long shot, anywhere from 41 to 50 grains of powder. Never substitute the recipe from one brand of powder to another brand because they have different burn rates and different densities. The recipe I want to use today will be sending the slug at 2,000 feet per second, and we'll be using 50 grains of long shot. The powder scale that I like to use is this old school Lee safety scale. It's very accurate, down to 1/10 of a grain, more than enough accuracy, and it doesn't take any batteries. Now you can find these brand new. I think they're like $40 new, but I found mine on eBay. I think I paid $17 and $5 shipping or something like that. They're always on eBay though. This scale is pretty easy to use. There's lots of good videos on YouTube explaining exactly how to use this, and I won't go too much in depth in how to use this scale. But you want to make sure the scale is zeroed out with an empty pan, and you can use that brass adjusting nut there to zero it out. It's pretty easy. Now we're measuring out 50 grains of powder today, but this does have a kind of a fine adjustment on the scale that you can measure out 51.2 grains, for example. But we'll just set this to 0, lock it down, and then move our steel ball to 50 grains. Now 50 grains is a lot of powder for a shotgun slug. Most of the slugs that we shoot, I'll put 27 to 30 grains in, and we get really good velocity with that. Next we'll start scooping in some long shot, and as you can see the scale is starting to move. To add a little bit more. And the scale is so sensitive that, I mean, you could put a couple granules of that powder in there and you'll actually see it move. And having a small scoop like the one I made out of the pipette that kind of looks like a crack pipe comes in really handy if you need to add or remove just a few granules of powder to get it right on the mark. The scale will rock back and forth a little bit as it settles out. It's supposed to have magnetic dampening in there that's supposed to kind of buffer that out. But once the 2 points meet, you know that you're at your prescribed amount. So there we are, right at 50 grains. And if you're real careful, you can just dump the powder directly from the pan into the shell. I find that I tend to get a little sloppy and lose some. So I don't really recommend that unless you're just really careful. But just having a funnel comes in really handy. And I just made this one out of a piece of paper. And make sure you dump the entire quantity in the shell. Static electricity kind of causes the powder to stick to surfaces sometimes. Just a little flick of the finger will cause it to fall into the shell though. Now we'll load our LBC Sabot. This is like a modular unit. It just goes in one piece. Some slugs are a lot more complex using different gas seals and fiber waddings and stuff, and it just makes it more complicated. Now it's important to make sure that the slug is firmly against the powder. Using my drill press, I kind of use it like an arbor press and put a socket on there and just gently tamp it into the shell. If it's not seated, the shell may not even go off. Just the primer will go off and all your effort, powder, and everything went to waste. Now the roll crimper tool is in the drill press. I'll put a light coating of oil on the inside of it. I'm just using Marvel Mist Oil, but you can use pretty much any kind of lubricant. And you'll see I'm just holding it with my fingers. I've seen some fancy clamps that'll hold your shell in place. I've just never seen the need for that. And I'm running my drill press at its lowest speed. I think it's a 5-speed drill press. And I'll just keep pressing until that roll bead comes in contact with the sabots. And it's done. Now I have seen guys using like a handheld drill motor to do this operation, but the drill press is perfectly perpendicular, and you know, I think it's a lot safer too. Another option to look at is the old school hand cranked roll crimper. It kind of resembles one of those old apple peelers that you kind of clamp onto a tabletop and it has a crank on it. Some folks really prefer those over something that goes on a drill press. And those things too can be found on eBay. I think the Russians still make them too. And you can actually order them from Russia if you don't mind waiting like 2 months to get yours. Just one way of many to load a shotgun shell. It's not very expensive, it's not very hard, but it is very satisfying to load your own ammo like this. We have yet to shoot these. We'll shoot them later this week. Let me know in the comments what you'd like us to shoot these at. Hey, thanks for watching.